Everyone, it's Kodak Cameron, and I am sitting here with Danny Boyle, director of the upcoming 28 Years Later movie, which is the sequel to 28 Days Later. I am very excited to talk to you. How are you doing, Danny?
I'm very good, and very nice to meet you too.
Very nice to meet you as well. I have a question for you. So what's scarier, rage-infected people or making a sequel to a horror classic after 20 years?
Well, the story I always tell is how we found the infected look or action that they did in the first film. And we found these ex-athletes who had this agency that when they retired from athletics, professional athletes, so they were seriously powerful, fit people. But when they retired, which they often did at 30 because their careers are over, they had this agency used to send them to places to open supermarkets. They like do tumbles and then cut a, and stuff. That was the jobs they got. And so we got them together and we got them to do a workshop, and I said, I put them all at the end of the room like these guys are now, and there was about like 15 of them, and I said, attack me as violently as you can, as quickly as you can, but don't hurt me. And they came, and I remember that moment. That's the scaredest I've ever been. That moment, it's like when they're coming at you, these powerful people who could tear you to pieces, literally tear you to pieces. Wow. So that's more scary than anything. So that's my scariest moment.
Gotcha. I mean, that's just a good example right there as to just how like of a visionary of a director that you are, and something that really has caught my attention since it's been announced for this movie is that you filmed this on iPhone 15 Pro Maxes, which I think is very, very cool. But I know a lot more actually goes into that, and I actually have an image that I'll show my audience as well. But this image right here, I'll show the camera as well. But this is so cool. So where did you come up with this idea for this camera rig with 20 iPhones? This is amazing.
Well, it was one of the reasons we don't just use iPhones. There's a number of different cameras that are used throughout it, and they're all formatted to shoot this widescreen piece like this. It's a 2:76 called a 2:76 ratio, which means 2:76 that way to 1 that way. But you get this widescreen feeling, and we wanted to use it because we wanted to create an unease. In the first film, you create there's an incredible sense of, it's almost like the camera work is unreliable. You're kind of never quite sure what to trust or what, it always feels a bit jittery and kind of like, oh my God, unease. And we wanted to do the equivalent of that, but 28 years later.
Yeah.
And it was in the first film, we used kind of domestic video cameras. And in this one, we thought, well, let's use iPhones or camera phones, if you like, for some of the shooting, because it'll allow us to be very lightweight and it'll allow us to create a rig like that, which you can use then, and it's basically a poor man's bullet time,
right?
Like the Matrix, is that it literally captures 180 degrees of an action.
Yep.
Particularly a very violent action, so that you can move around it like that in an instant, within half a second, you can go all the way around it, or stop and start and go back again and come like that to create that unease. And what's great about it is that, and it's why it's a poor man's version of it, is that it's flexible. You can move it around. So we would take it with us to these remote places like that forest you could just see there, and we would use it in places like that. And there's a great use of it in a train carriage in the final film, which they're not able, you'll never see this in a trailer because the content of it is you can only see in the cinema. It's like this for one particular moment it's used then, So,
Speaking of the trailer, I mean, one of the most impressive trailers that I've seen in recent years. Grabbed my attention immediately, and I loved how they used the Boots audio, which I made a whole video on it. It actually went like insanely viral of me like explaining how it's like a poem written by like Rudyard Kipling, and how it had to do with like the Second Boer War, and it was just so incredible, and it fits so well with the vibe of this movie. So you mentioned trailer, so I just wanted to say that the trailer is absolutely amazing. But when you were talking about how you filmed the original 28 Days Later on cameras that almost make it look like found footage.
Yes.
And one of my questions is, independent filmmaking is super important, and I think a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers are kind of scared and really, don't know where to start. So do you have any sort of thing that you can tell up-and-coming filmmakers to not be so scared?
Yes.
Yeah.
The industry, you won't think this because it looks so intimidating, and people like me look so intimidating because we've done so much, and it's all like, it just seems like impossible to get near. the industry is dead without you. New ideas, new blood. It's just vampiric, an industry. It's soaking up because its audience is young and they want to see their own stories told. So don't be intimidated, don't be frightened, don't be scared. Get your balls out and just take risks and do, and just tell the stories you want to tell. And the equipment is there now that you can do it. And the thing that's most important is the story. Is that the story is good and that you have a believability in the way that you portray it and the way that your actors portray it, that you can, and it doesn't matter whether it's stylized or not, but you create enough a sense of belief that people will believe what is happening in front of them. Even if it's extreme, like this film is very extreme, some of the violence in it is very extreme, and some of the circumstances are very extreme, but you want your job as director or creator or whatever you're doing is to make people believe it. And if you believe it on the day, and if you can make your actors believe it, you're halfway there. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate all that you just said about that. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. And, like I mentioned before, it's just been over 2 decades since, you made 28 Years Later with Alex Garland, and now over 20 years later, over the years, have there been any other stories for 28 Years Later that you didn't get to make, but this is the one that you decided to?
Yeah, Alex, because we talked about it, because the first film seemed to have a resonance that a lot of your films don't. You make a film and it gradually fades away. It might do very well, but it still fades away. But 28 Days Later seemed to sustain. People seem to be fascinated by it, and you got this spin-off TV series which are clearly influenced by it, and other movies were made. So we always kept talking about, should we do another part of it? And Alex did write one script, but it was very much what you'd expect from a sequel. It was like the virus was weaponized in the story by kind of government, military, corporation. It was sort of like traditional kind of sequel writing. Yeah. And we didn't really kind of go for it because we thought the first film is really original, and we've got to create that originality. You must never feel, I sort of expected them to do that. So this is, again, the idea of it is it's an original film in its own way. It inherits certain characteristics from the first film, but it's a standalone, really, in a way. And there is a second film, which we've shot, which is equally beholden to the first film, but is also standalone, and it's satisfying in its own right. It takes some characters through, and eventually the Killian character from the original movie does eventually reappear. But not in the first film. Oh, so I've had to. He's an executive producer on the film.
I love that.
Yeah, so you'll see eventually. And we haven't raised the money for the third film. But the good things, and Killian is very much associated with good things in so many different ways. Good things come to people who wait, and you just have to wait for a bit. But anyway, he does appear, and eventually, if we make the third film will be very much his film,
Oh, that's awesome. Talking about, different concepts, we have 28 Years Later, just, hypothetically, what would a 280 Years Later film look like?
Oh my God, quite interesting, because we did obviously a lot of research on places that had been abandoned for years, and it's the power of nature is what you begin to learn, is that this planet will return to what it was quite quickly, without us and our obsession with concrete and oil and all the things it will return to what it was very quickly. So it would be a kind of very, I don't know where you'd be able to walk. Where would humans be able to walk? Because the forests would return, because England was just forests, and we try to show that it's returning to forest land, really. So it would be. Yeah, it would be interesting. There you go. Well, you never know. We might be meeting in a few years' time. We might have decided to do that. You never know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny Boyle. It was
Thanks, Cameron.
amazing to be able to ask you some questions. Thank you so much, and I'm very excited for this movie. Thank you so much.
Thanks
all right?
very much,
You have a
Cameron.
great rest of your day, all right?
Cheers now.